we will see what happens there. All right, we're going to move on to part 2 of the week that was, and that is Nyckoles Harbor and Jelani Watkins. These two guys went clearly at it in both the 60 and the 200, and they put down some epic performance here. Olivia, let's start with you. Just what are your overall thoughts of these two?
My mind was blown this weekend, and we already, I had a chance to see Nyckoles Harbor and chat with him at the VA showcase just about a week and a half ago. But to actually see him put together a 60 now, that's a whole different ball game. I saw him run the 300. I was even thinking, like, what is this guy capable of? Because a 300 is a longer sprint, so it's not like you're just coming out explosiveness there. But we were able to see that from Nick and also Jelani Watkins as well in that 60 meters. Just looking at the prelim, Nick went 6.66 and then 6.64 in the finals for a new personal best. Jelani Watkins went 6.79 in the prelims and then 6.67 in the finals. And from this race, we had the fastest guys in the 60 for spots number 1, number 2, and number 3. So we had the top 3 fastest guys in the nation coming together at the Texas Tech Under Armour High School Invitational and completely just did an amazing job there. Now, looking in this 200, this was what was also impressive. I know Nick had a huge goal of just like running fast records here. Went 20.76 in the prelim. He did not run the finals, but set a new personal best there. And then Jelani Watkins won the 200 with a 20.94. And this is the first time in his high school career that he dipped under 21 seconds. Now, just a side note here, kind of looking in this 200 field, I don't know if you guys remember Kendrick Jones Jr., but this guy dropped an AAU Junior Olympic Games 14-year-old 200-meter national record. It like blew up the whole internet when he ran a 21.25. He was second overall as a freshman behind Jelani, and he clocked a 21.18 in the prelims in Lubbock, set a new freshman class record there, and then 21.33 in the finals. So I thought just across the board, super great job from these gentlemen, especially in Lubbock.
Yeah. Ashley, you want to add to that?
Yeah, one thing I really want to point out here is, guys, Jelani Watkins, he's still only a junior. That's impressive. You see, he ran 20.94. That is U.S. number 4 all-time for the junior class. So incredible mark there. It's the fastest mark by a junior since none other than Nyckoles Harbor ran this last year. He went 20.79, at this meet in 2022. And that was the second best time ever recorded by a junior. And, the same goes for his 60-meter performance, 6.67. That's tied for U.S. number 5 all-time for juniors indoors. And, I really think he's, not just emerging as the guy in Texas, but he could be one of the guys nationally in the sprints this indoor season.
I agree completely. I'm going to start with Jelani Watkins. I'm going to end with Nyckoles Harbor. But 2 years ago, Jelani Watkins was a freshman in Texas, and I wasn't quite sold on him. He was really, really fast, but in Texas, we know that you can't believe all the marks that you see. So in the spring season, as a freshman, he ran 10.02 seconds in the 100, which, we saw it, we're like, can't happen. Didn't happen. But, when you look at his season after that, you start to sense that maybe there's things that aren't amiss here. Maybe he is legitimate. That 10.02 was FAT, but there was no wind reading. It's Texas out in the middle of nowhere, so you can't always believe it. But he went on to finish the season 6th in the 200 as a freshman in 6A. Then last year, Olivia and I were both at the Texas State Championships. He wins the 6A final in the 200 dash, 20.78, and he took over in the second half of the race. He also ran 10.21 wind aided at the Texas Relays. So the guy clearly has talent. Now, for him to compete with Nyckoles shoulder to shoulder in both of these races, I think speaks to his overall potential. This guy is clearly legitimate, and I think he is someone that could break away in due time. But he is a football guy, so you always have to wonder how much stock is he putting into Texas, or how much is he putting into track. Even that said, I think he's still going to be really, really good, even if he doesn't put his whole heart and soul into it. Now, getting to Nyckoles, just absolute behemoth of a man, just incredible. 6.66 in the prelim, 6.64 in the finals, 20.76, as you both said. They're both top 15 all-time in those events. I have a question for both of you now. Nyckoles is now US 1 in 3 events indoors. We just redid the MileSplit 50 last week, so it's going to be 2 weeks till we get to it again. But at this point, did he do enough to sort of cement himself in that number one status? Like, where do you all put him after this weekend?
Oh, absolutely.
I can go first. Oh, go ahead, Ashley. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I mean, hands down, yes. I think if you're U.S. number one in 3 events and they're all-time performances, it's hard to me, it's hard to deny that. I mean, he's been dominant.
Yeah, I think just kind of piggybacking off of what Ashley said, I think going into the rankings last week, right, we just saw Nyckoles Harbor run the 300. It was like, I personally was like, I need to see a little bit more than, the 33.90. He did a phenomenal job at the VA Showcase, won that from a slower section. Kudos to the man. But when we're looking at the MileSplit 50 rankings, we're taking into consideration who they're running against, what times they're putting up, and there's a lot of factors that get into it. After this weekend, I think it's clearly safe to say, like going into this weekend, of course, we're going to see him in 2 weeks from now, but just going into this weekend, I think it's clearly safe to say Nyckoles Harbor deserves spot number one right now. He clearly has just dominated in the 60 now, doing his thing in the 200, rocking in the 300. It's just like, it's hard to be dominant across all those, to show that versatility. It's hard to have, that explosive start, but also have that speed endurance as well. So I feel like Nyckoles deserves that spot number one going into it.
And that would be precedent setting. I think the only other football player that's been as good over the last 10 years probably is Anthony Schwartz. But Nyckoles is a number one football recruit as an athlete. Anthony was like top 50. So number one in football, now eventually going to be number one in track. That's precedent setting. That's incredible to think. But we'll get to that, I think, and more down the line. But we got part 3 of the week that was, and that's the USATF U20 cross-country